yesterday we talked about vertex form. Okay. And that form was in the form of f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. That was our vertex form. Let's talk about a few things here. What's the vertex? What stands for the vertex in that form? H and K. H and K is the vertex. Okay, that's why it's called vertex form, because you can take the vertex right out of the formula. You don't have to do any math with it. Okay, so an example, if I had f of x equals x minus 2 squared plus 3, what would my vertex be there? If I take it out, what's the h value? -2. Careful. The h value is just 2. What's the k? 3. Because remember, that x minus 2, that means right 2. So that's why we want it to be a positive 2. Okay? If this said x plus 2, then what would our vertex be? -2, 3. Yep. Okay, so that's our vertex form. It's called vertex form because you can pull the vertex out of the equation. Okay. Today, again, we've talked about this before. Today we're going to talk about standard form. I'm going to write out vertex form. Okay. Today we're talking about standard form. We have dealt with and graphed standard form already. Standard form is in the form of f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. A lot of us refer to this as the ABC form. Okay? The ABC is the standard form. What we have seen before is if we have x squared plus 6x plus 4. Does that look familiar to some of us? Okay, we already know how to graph that. Do we remember how to graph this to get the vertex of standard form? How do we get the vertex using the A, B, and C? Remember our x equals negative b over 2a. Okay, so we'd use x equals negative b over 2a. That to get our x value, how would we find the y value once we had the x value? We would plug it in. Yep. So today we're focusing a lot on the standard form, which you already know how to graph. Okay, so standard form, we're just focusing on how to find the vertex, and then we're going to talk about some key features. Okay. Quick review from yesterday. I'm going to guess a random one. If I had vertex form, f of x equals 2 times x plus 3 minus 7. Let's talk about key features. First thing we wanted to find yesterday was the vertex. Again, vertex, we get it from what?
HK.
H and K. What is my H value?
3.
Think plus 3. Is that right 3 or left 3?
Left.
Left 3. So I need a negative 3 for my x value. What's my k value?
-7.
-7. So think you're always going to do the opposite of whatever this says. It was a positive 3, so my x value is a negative 3. From there, we talked about some other key values. Okay, we talked about specifically the min and the max. Now, we don't have a graph, okay, but we can kind of sketch out what this graph is going to look like. Is this graph going to open up or is it going to open down?
Up.
Up. Where'd you get that from?
The 2 is positive.
Because the A here is positive, so it's going to open up. I'm going to sketch it real quick here. Where's my vertex on that point?
The middle.
It's in the middle, right? Bottom middle. Is that a max or a min? That's a minimum. Why is it a minimum? Yep, max is at the top, min is at the bottom. Okay, so that's our lowest point, so the vertex is our minimum. Okay. Next we talked about axis of symmetry. Okay. Symmetry means what?
Mirror.
Mirror image, right? If you fold it, it's the same thing folded together. So, where would that axis of symmetry be? What about the negative 3?
X equals.
There we go. Has to always be x equals whatever the x value is. Okay, x equals negative 3. That tells me that is my axis of symmetry. Okay, 2 more things we talked about were domain. What's the domain?
Negative infinity, positive infinity.
Yep, what do you know about the domain?
Same no matter what.
It's always going to be the same with our parabolas. Okay, and then the last thing we talked about, what goes with domain?
Range.
Range.
Infinity, -7.
Now careful, we need our lowest y value. What's the lowest y value?
-7.
That would be here. Yep, -7, highest y value? Infinity. See how this picture kind of helped when we were talking about some of these things? Okay, so again, we don't need the exact picture. Okay, we can just sketch it out and be able to see some things. Okay, now if we did actually sketch this out, my starting point is what?
-3, -7.
The vertex, right? How do I get all of my other points from that vertex?
You do the
Up
stair.
The step method, right? What's the original step method?
1, 3, 5, 7.
1, 3, 5, 7. What do we have to be careful with?
Times everything by 7.
A,
We have to be careful of the a value. What's my a value?
2.
2. So what do I have to do to each step?
Multiply by 2.
Multiply each step by 2. What is 1 times 2? 2. 3 times 2? 5 times 2? 7 times 2? 14. So this would be my new step pattern. Over 1, up
2.
2, over 1, up 6. Okay?
Write that.
Only if you're graphing it. I want to see that. Yep. But here we were just talking about these 5 things on the side. Okay, I was just reviewing what you would do if you wanted to graph. Okay. Now today we're going to move on with standard form. Like I already said, standard form is the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Go ahead and flip to the second page of your notes. You should see this problem here. You have f of x equals x squared minus 8x plus 5. It wants us to find the vertex. How do I find the vertex when we are in standard form? Can I just pull it out of the equation?
No.
No. So what's the method that I have to use?
Solve the equation.
-b over
Yep,
2.
you're right. Yep, so my x value would be, so remember the vertex, we're always going to write that in coordinate form. So remember, coordinates are written as x and y, so we have to find the x and y values. Okay, so remember the x value is found by using -b over 2a. What is my -b?
No. 8.
b is -8. What's the negative of that?
Positive.
Positive 8. 2 times, what's my a value?
1.
Correct, because you get that a value from in front of the x squared, and that is a 1. 8 divided by
2.
2 is
4.
4. What did that just give me?
X.
That gave me the x value of my coordinate. What am I missing from my vertex?
Y.
The y. How do I find the y?
Plug X. 4 in for X.
Yep, we're plugging in this x value to both x's. So f of x, why can I put a y here for f of x? Why can I put y equals instead of f of x equals?
That's what f of X equals.
Yep, f of x stands for y. Okay, so I can put y equals 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 5. Why do I put parentheses around things that I plug in?
So you know that's what you plugged in.
So I don't get it mixed up, right? We want to stay consistent. What is 4 squared?
16.
16. 8 times 4.
24.
Careful, go one more up.
32.
32 plus 5. What's 16 minus 32?
16.
Negative 16 plus 5. Negative 11. What did that just give me?
1.
The y. Okay. Now do we have our vertex? Yes. Okay. Vertex is the most important thing of a parabola. Why do I say that? Why is the vertex the most important thing?
It's your starting point.
That's your starting point, right? Once I have my vertex, I can figure out everything else I want to know about that picture. Okay? So, let's go through those things. We're going to go through the same things we did with standard or with vertex form. Okay? So, what I first want to understand is what this picture is going to look like. Is it going to open up or open down?
Up.
up because the A is positive. Where's my vertex at?
Right in the middle.
Right here, right? Vertex is always going to be wherever it changes direction.
X equals 4.
Okay? So let's go through the 6 things, or 5 things. Vertex, we already found, was 4, negative 11. Make sure we're all writing this down. Vertex was already found, 4, negative 11. What do we talk about next? Minimum or maximum? What do we got?
Minimum.
It is a minimum because it's at the bottom. Good. What did we talk about next?
Symmetry.
Axis of symmetry. How am I always going to write the axis of symmetry?
Big A, little O, big S.
Right. How am I going to write my answer?
X equals 4.
X equals 4. Where did you get that 4 from?
That's the X.
That's the X value, right? So your axis of symmetry, you're always going to write your answer as X equals whatever the X value is. So in this case, it's X equals 4. What's after axis of symmetry? Domain. What always goes with domain?
Infinity.
Yep. Domain and range. Domain's always going to be negative infinity to infinity. Now, drawing the picture does help us figure out what the min and max are. The picture also helps us decide what the range is. Okay? What is my lowest Y value?
No.
Other one. Negative 11. And then what's my highest Y value? Infinity. Yep. Using the picture, my lowest Y value is where my vertex is. And then the highest, we always have arrows up there. Okay? One more thing I want to talk about. There's one more key feature with standard form that we can talk about. And that's the y-intercept. What does it mean to be a y-intercept?
Cross the y-axis.
Crossing the y-axis. Okay. When we solved for y-intercepts algebraically, what were we plugging in for what?
0.
We were plugging in 0 for x, right? Now, if I did that, you do not need to write this out, and I'm going to tell you why. If I plugged 0 in for here, what would I get?
0.
0, so it's gone. Do you agree?
Yes.
What would I get if I plugged in 0 here?
0.
So it's gone. Do you agree?
Yeah.
What do I all have left?
5.
5. So how do I write that as a y-intercept?
Y equals
0, 5. Does that make sense? So your y-intercept is always going to come from that C value. Easy enough? That y-intercept is always going to be whatever that C value is, but you have to write it in the form of a coordinate, like we always have been. Let's look at your example 2. This is what yours looks like. We're not actually going to graph this, okay, because there is no room on the graph to actually graph this. Okay. First off, what form is this in? Standard form or vertex form? Standard. What is the most important thing of a parabola? Vertex. So we need to find the vertex. Okay, remember, vertex is always in the form of x and y. So we have to find both x and y. What do I do? I want to find the x first. How can I find the x?
Negative b over
Yep, x equals negative b over
2 times a.
2a. What is my negative b? Yep, 6 over 2. What's my a value? 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Again, what did I just find? That's the x value. What do I need for my vertex still? The y. How do I find the y? Plug 3 in for both x's. So I have y equals 3 squared minus 6 times 3 minus 1. Again, why do I put parentheses around things I plug in? Yep, so I don't make little mistakes. What's 3 squared?
9.
9. 6 times 3? 18 minus 1. You get negative 10 after you subtracted all of those.
What?
Okay, because 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Minus 1 is negative 10. What did that just give me? That gave me the y. Have I found everything I need to in order to help me find everything else?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Have I found the key thing to help me find everything else?
Yes.
Yes, okay, the vertex tells me everything else about the equation. Okay, so let's list all of those things. First thing is always the vertex. Well, we already found it. That's 3, negative 10. What's next? Minimum or maximum. So we need to sketch a picture. Is my picture opening up or down?
Up.
Remember, that always comes from whatever a value is in front. Is there a negative there or is it positive? Positive, so my picture is opening up. So we do have a minimum vertex. What do we find next? Which stands for? Symmetry. Where do I have symmetry? Can I just put 3? Right, has to be x equals 3. Awesome. What next? Domain. What do you know about domain? Good. Is domain ever going to change? Nope. Range. Good. Negative 10 to infinity. Awesome. There was one more thing that we added on. Y-intercept. Where are you always going to get that y-intercept from when you're in standard form?
It's -1.
The c value, which is here. How do I write my answer? 0, negative 1. Once I find all 6 of those, I'm done. Let's talk about how you can find the same things by just looking at a picture. Okay? Now I know this isn't a perfect picture. Okay, but we're going to try our best. What's the most important thing of a parabola? Vertex. Okay? Does everyone agree my vertex is here?
Yes.
What is my x value of that vertex, approximately?
1.5.
This would be about 1.5, so it would be about 1.25. What's my y value here?
30.
So this
27.
here is about 25.
23.
So it would be about 23, I agree. Okay, that's my vertex. We just guesstimated based off of a graph. Now, if I ever give you a graph, it will be a perfect point. Okay, but in this case, it's not. What do I figure out next? Minimum and maximum. Yep, why is it a max this time? It's going down, and our vertex is at the highest point, it's at the top. Okay, what do I find next? AOS, axis of symmetry. How do I always write my answer for this? X equals whatever the x value is. In this case, it's 1.25. What's next?
Domain and range.
Domain. What's the domain?
Negative
Negative infinity to infinity. When you are writing these down, make sure you're labeling what is what. Okay, what do we find next?
range.
Range. What's my lowest y value? Careful. Yes, it's a little different this time. My smallest y value, I hit that arrow at the bottom. What's my highest y value?
23.
23. Yep. Last thing.
Y-intercept.
Y-intercept. What do we think?
Looks like 3.
It is 3. How do I write that? Just 3?
0, 3.
0, 3. Again, we could check all of that right here. I want you to check. Did we get the y-intercept correct?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because it's the C.
The c value is what your y-intercept is. Okay, so you can get all of those things from the equation and or from the graph. Okay? On that essential question, number 1, everyone see what I'm looking at? I want you to list all of these things. We talked about key features. Okay? We're going to list them all. What's the main key feature you need to know? Vertex. Okay, so number 1 is your vertex. What's the second thing we did? Minimum or maximum. Okay, if I have this picture here, is that a minimum or a maximum?
Minimum.
That's a minimum. That's if your A is positive. What if it looked like this?
Maximum.
That's a maximum, and that's if your A was negative. Okay, make sure we're writing all this down so we can use it later. Number 3, axis of symmetry. How am I always going to write my answer? X equals x equals whatever the x value is. Okay? I added up there, the vertex is always in xy form. I added that. Number 4 is what? Domain. What am I always going to put for domain? Negative infinity to infinity. What's 5? Range. Do I always know what the range is going to be? No. It's the highest y. Nope. It's the lowest y to the highest y. And then what was that last thing we added on today? Y-intercept. Where am I always going to get that from?
C.
C. How do I write my answer?
0.
0, comma. I'm going to put C there. 0, comma, whatever your C value is. Okay? Those are the 6 key features that we're going to be focusing on. Okay?